When I was 19, facing my first real inspection, my hands shook so much that the clipboard tapped against my chest. A senior officer asked a simple question about the ship systems, and I just froze. I mumbled something vague and spent the rest of the day wishing I could start over. Now, fast forward to 30, which was still quite a long time ago, but now I'm the officer. Different ship, but same pressure. An inspector fires a tough question to me that I wasn't quite ready for. But this time, I just nod and say 5 simple words. What were they? That is a good question. I take a slow breath and then line up my points and then give a clear 2-part answer. So, what do we learn from that? Confidence isn't about never feeling nervous. It's about giving yourself 1 or 2 smart seconds to think. So today I'm going to show you how one phrase can actually do that. And you're going to want to stick around because tonight's Mastery Minute has a classic English phrase that turns pauses into power. Don't miss that at the end. And if you have any questions, be sure to drop them in the chat, and I'll get to them at the end after the Mastery Minute. Also, I've got a special interactive section also toward the end of the Mastery section. You're going to want to see that. Stick around for that because, it's good to get a little practice in. But let's start by introducing you to Hannah, a project coordinator in Seoul. And in meetings, she had great ideas, but she often started with things like, maybe, I think, and people started to tune out. So I taught her one phrase, that's a good question. And the next meeting, her manager asked, why should we change the launch date? So Hannah smiled and said, that's a good question. Took a beat and then said, because our user testing shows us that a spike happens in signups the week after Chuseok, and moving the date lets us ride that wave. Oh, suddenly people were nodding along. So was it a different Hannah? No, she's the same one, just with the same ideas, but now she has a new presence in the office. So the question I have is, why does this little phrase work so well? And how do you use it without sounding robotic? Well, I'm going to break it down. Are you ready? Here we go. So let's do a quick reality check. Do you ever freeze or ramble or feel your mind go blank when someone puts you on the spot? Or start with filler words like and maybe I think, and then watch people tune out? Here is your reset. The phrase is simple. That's a good question. And it really is. Why does it work? Because it buys you 2 to 3 seconds to breathe. It shows respect to the questioner, and it signals that you have calm authority instead of being defensive. After you do that, you add a clear bridge like because, or there are 2 parts, or here's how I would approach it, and give your answer. All right? So, but what's really happening here? What is happening in the brain here? Well, first of all, when you say it, the other person feels that they are recognized, and that helps to lower the tension in the situation. Second, you give yourself a tiny pause. That calms the stress response and lets your thinking brain catch up with your racing heart because it is nerve-wracking. And third, the way it lands makes you sound like you're measured and confident, not defensive or anything like that. And people do really read that as credibility. That helps you out. That's the quiet psychology that makes this phrase so powerful. So, we do this with a simple 3-step formula. Very simple. Number 1, acknowledge the person who asked the question. That's a good question. Number 2, breathe. Micro pause. 1 calm beat. Steady eye contact. Just gather your thoughts. Then use a bridge to the answer. The bridge is something like because, and then give your key reason, or from what we're seeing, and then add more. Here's how I'd approach it, and then explain how you would approach it. Or you could say there are 2 parts or 3 parts, and then number them as you say, first of all and second of all. All right, we're going to practice this, don't worry. But let's look at some use cases when you might use this. Number 1, picture this. You're in a packed conference room. The projector is humming, everyone's eyes are on you, and your boss suddenly leans forward and asks, why the change in the timeline? Your pulse jumps because you weren't expecting that question. But instead of rushing or freezing, you smile and say, that's a good question. Beat. Take a that's your pause moment. And we did a video about pausing a little while ago, but this is very useful. Then the room settles down, people lean in, and then you continue. Well, there's 2 parts to this. First is risk. The second is ROI. First, let's go on to talk about risk and things like that. So now you've shifted the energy. You look calm and thoughtful and in control. No more stress, right? All right. That's number 1, meetings. How about in an interview? Imagine you're in an interview room. You got a glass of water, sweating on the table. 2 managers are sizing you up. One leans forward and asks, what's your biggest weakness? Ooh, your stomach flips and your brain screams, don't mess this up. Nobody likes that question, your biggest weakness. But instead of just blurting something awkward, you nod, smile, and say, what? That's right, that's a good question. Then take a beat. The panel relaxes, you relax, you take a breath, then you continue. Well, I used to over-prepare slides, but now I time box and focus on stories, which improved my delivery. See? So suddenly, what you thought was a trap question becomes proof that you've grown, and now you look composed and confident and self-aware. Pretty good. Okay, how about if you're in a disagreement with somebody? Nobody likes disagreements. We did a video a few weeks ago about disagreements. So imagine you're in the project huddle. The colleague, looking a little stern, crosses their arms and says, hey, shouldn't we cut QA to move faster? Ooh, the room feels tense. You don't snap back, though, because you're smart. Instead, you tilt your head and smile. Remember, the smile is the key. And say, that's a good question. Take a beat. Everyone has a chance to relax, and then you continue on. From what we're seeing, skipping QA increases rollback. A 1-day buffer saves rework. There, you see, you've now disagreed without conflict. You've been calm, logical, and persuasive. Isn't that nice? All right, another one is when you don't know the answer. And everybody's been in that situation. I've been there. I'm sure you've been there. Now, imagine you're there in the boardroom. The investors are there tapping their pens, and someone suddenly asks, what's next quarter's churn forecast? Ooh, now you're feeling the heat. But instead of panicking, you steady your breath and you say, what? Not, I don't know. You say, that's a good question. Take a beat. The room starts to relax. You still look composed. Take your two breaths and then add, I don't have the precise number. But what? I can confirm after the meeting and report back by 3. Remember, we talked about that in the Never Say I Don't Know video. That was a few last week, a week before, I don't know. It's been a while. You have now admitted to trust rather than losing it. Right. So don't worry about that. Okay. Now, how do we deliver this? Well, first of all, to sound confident, always avoid on the last part. When you get to question, notice how I don't say question, I say question. I drop my tone just a little bit because that helps you sound more confident, not surprised. Second, your body language. Nod once, shoulders down, breathe through your nose. Don't forget to smile. Timing. Take a 1 or 2 second pause. You shouldn't need more than that. Maybe 3 at the max, but too much longer than that could feel like you're stalling. All right. You don't want to do that. Also, don't overuse this word or this phrase. You don't want to say it all the time. Save it for real questions, not every sentence. So, are you ready for a little mini drill? Let's practice, okay? Say it with me 3 times, and then add your bridge. That's a good question. Because, see how I paused there? Take a breath. That's a good question. Here's how I'd approach it. That's a good question. There are 2 parts. Part number 1 and part number 2. See? Okay, it's not that hard. It's pretty easy, right? Okay, and this is pretty amazing. Now let's get to that part where you can have a chance. Type a real question from your day in the chat. I'll wait. Well, I'm not going to wait too long. And then I'll model a response live using the 3-step formula. All right? Type a real question in the chat, and then we'll do the 3-step formula. Okay. Well, I'm not seeing anybody in the chat, so we'll use an example question. Why should we delay the product launch by 2 weeks? Good question. That's a good question. Okay? I'm going to take a break because there are 2 parts to my answer. Risk and ROI. First off, the risk is that we could have trouble with the product launch. We haven't had a chance to do all the testing. And the second is ROI, or return on investment. Okay, I'm not going to go into the long detail because we're running out of time. So here is your challenge for this week. Use that's a good question 3 times. Once in a meeting, once in a one-on-one conversation, once in a casual chat. I know we didn't cover that use case, but you can still use it there. Notice how people are affected by that. Notice how they pay attention. Notice how you feel having that little bit of extra breathing room to come up with a good answer. Okay? And if you want to read the full blog, the link is in the description, or just go to allaboutenglishmastery.com. And if you've ever thought to yourself, hey, I don't have time to take classes or study for hours, this is for you. Check out my course, Mastering English for Busy Professionals. It's right down there in the chat and in the description. The link is there. It's a quick course that will teach you how to do 10 minutes a day and improve your English. All right, and I'd love to hear from you, so stick around. jump into the chat. I'll be taking live questions right after the Mastery Minute. Don't be shy. Bring your tough questions. I want to hear from you. Because now it's time for the Mastery Minute. Aren't you excited? And today's phrase is silence is golden. Sometimes the smartest sentence is no sentence at all. Silence is golden is an old proverb that goes back centuries. The idea came up in ancient texts, then became popular in 19th century Europe, reminding people that quiet often carries more weight than words. I mean, picture a crowded hall where everyone is shouting until one calm voice simply stops talking. The silence grabs attention more than the noise ever could. Do you ever see that happen? Like a speaker comes up to the podium and they don't say anything and the room becomes quiet. So, in a Q&A, you can try it. Try to make your point. If someone is asking you questions, make your point. Then a calm 2-second pause and watch how the silence pulls focus to you. In negotiations, a pause is like a spotlight. It invites the other side to rush in and fill the space, often revealing more than they planned. And when tempers flare up, people are angry, silence is like a safety catch. It prevents words that you can't take back. So that's why this little proverb has lasted for so long, because it actually works. So here's a little tip you can try. Deliver your answer, then pause and count in your head. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. That's exactly 2 seconds. And then let your words work for you. So that is all the time we have for today. We unlocked the power of that's a good question. Acknowledge, breathe, bridge, then answer. Next time, we'll talk about 15 must-know, elegant English words that are simple, stylish, and give your vocabulary a little polish to make you sound a bit more professional. And if you like this episode, give us a like, subscribe, and be sure to share with anybody who's trying to improve their communications. And I'll see you on Monday at 9:30 p.m. Korea Standard Time, 8:30 in Taiwan and Hong Kong. Anywhere else, you got to do the math. And I appreciate. Thanks for joining me. Have a great weekend, everybody.